This youngster, who stumbled so much that his classmates referred to him as an alien, went on to become the most popular comic in the world. But there was a price for Rowan Atkinson's metamorphosis. When he performed, he found that his stammer completely vanished. Only then did each Mr. Bean episode empty his emotions. "The character is exhausting," he said, looking forward to the end of the filming. He felt like a phony, the man who made millions laugh acknowledged. At 70, he is now sharing how his early trauma influenced everything. Music. The mute comedian at last found the right words to share his tale. In concert, a little town in County Durham, England, Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on January 6, 1955. Before he was even old enough to recall, a tragic event occurred, leaving him the youngest of 4 brothers. With the death of his oldest brother, Paul, when still a newborn, he had only 3 brothers. Rodney, one of Rowan's brothers, went on to become an economist and came dangerously close to leading the UK Independence Party in 2000. Having grown up on a farm, Rowan led a fairly quiet and orderly existence. However, it's interesting that he would eventually become well known for portraying foolish, boisterous characters. Rowan began experiencing a severe stutter at the age of 5. He had trouble speaking clearly, which made education extremely difficult. He attended Durham Chester School, where he experienced harsh bullying. Rowan was described by his employer, Canon John Grove, as a bashful youngster with a rubbery face and a speech issue. He was even described as seeming extraterrestrial by some of his music peers. They chuckled at his appearance and manner of speaking. Rowan also stayed by himself most of the time. Tony Blair, who would go on to become Prime Minister, was a student there. Tony, who was 2 years younger, recalled how difficult Rowan's life had been. The bullying was so severe that The Independent published an article about it in 2007. But when Rowan took the stage, an odd thing occurred. His stutter would totally go away. He had no trouble at all performing. The secret to his skill was that traumatic aspect of his early years. Rowan excelled in school despite the bullying. In 1973, he was accepted to Newcastle University after receiving excellent scores in his science A-levels, music. He studied electrical and electronic engineering when he was barely 18 years old. It was assumed that he would become a scientist or engineer rather than a comic. He was 20 years old when he graduated in 1975. He then pursued a music master's degree at Queen's College, Oxford, following in his father's footsteps. His MSc concentrated on self-tuning control systems, which are quite complicated. He even began, but did not complete, a PhD. Something was tugging him in a different way. Rowan didn't stand out in class, according to Chris Robson, his instructor. However, he changed completely as soon as he took the stage. The actual change in music started at that point. In 1975, Rowan joined a review organization called the Etc. and the Drama Club while attending Oxford. He got to know Richard Curtis, a young writer, through music at this time. Their lives would change as a result of this encounter. Early in 1976, at a rehearsal, Richard first saw Rowan perform. He later claimed that a quiet man with a humorous appearance was standing in the corner. At last, though, Rowan's performance left Richard speechless. Rowan sketched about driving and included a scene in which he spoke and mimed simultaneously. "Pure genius," Richard said. Rowan played with the Oxford Review at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in August of that year, 1976. He was playing music in front of a large national audience for the first time. With the popularity of the show, Rowan's future became evident. His role as an engineer had evolved. He was a showman. Rowan began formally pursuing his master's degree in electrical engineering in 1975 while still enrolled at Oxford. He conducted thorough investigation, and in 1978 he published his thesis. But he was acting more and more. Complicating matters was the clash between comedy and engineering. He retained that technical grounding, nevertheless. A few years later, he would be among the first famous people to purchase electric vehicles. 18 years prior to 2023, he purchased his first hybrid, and 9 years before to that year, he purchased his first totally electric vehicle. Using his expertise, he also criticized environmental claims and electric vehicle technology. Despite everything, it was evident that comedy was his main love. He had taken up residence in the theater. His first significant achievement was producing a radio program for BBC Radio 3 called The Atkinson, Music, People in 1979. He performed as French philosopher, musician, Georges Dupin and Sir Corin Basin, among other imaginary identities. It was produced by Griff Rhys-Jones and co-written by Richard Curtis. The show was clever and humorous, but few people watched it. Few people watched it because it aired during a time slot not intended for comedy. Critics, however, recognized his talent. Similar to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it was duly recorded. Although it didn't lead to his fame, it demonstrated that Rowan was prepared for a more significant role. The period from 1978 to 1979 was difficult. He was repeatedly rejected by the BBC. His comedy was lost on them. He was depressed and disoriented. During auditions and interviews, his stutter worsened, which made matters more difficult. He considered returning to engineering instead of comedy at one point. However, a momentary event altered everything. He became aware that his stammer disappeared as he came into character. Power came from that music discovery. He didn't have to speak in his authentic voice. He could let the dialogue come from the characters. After meeting Angus Deaton at Oxford, Rowan continued to collaborate with his old music friends. Angus frequently portrayed the solemn, straight man in their radio performances. As a result, Rowan's crazy characters were able to shine. Later, Angus made an appearance in an episode of Blackadder and in Mr. Bean and Music. While TV was still rejecting him, their collaboration gave Rowan confidence. He was able to mature without the constant pressure of being on camera. Rowan returned to Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival in 1979. He was 24 years old now. He was even spotted clearing debris and assisting with stage construction at the brand new Wireworks Theatre. His performance was largely quiet, akin to an old Buster Keaton movie. Some noticed something unique, but others didn't get it and even left. He was one of the few comedians who ever exploited his face and body, music. Through that performance, he was able to establish connections with the relevant industry people. He began attempting TV once more by 1980. In 1979, he produced the pilot for Canned Laughter. Among the many parts he performed was an early iteration of Mr. Bean. Although it was witty, the show was not picked up for a series. Several of these auditions were stressful since his stutter reappeared. He started to learn how to defeat it, though. He gave his characters his whole attention. He had learned how to conceal his stutter through performance by the time he made an appearance on Wogan in 1980 at the age of 25. It marked the beginning of the struggle's end. From that point on, the world started to notice a quiet, odd youngster who had transformed suffering into joy. The music life of Rowan Atkinson was irrevocably altered. He was given the opportunity to appear on the BBC's new comedy program, Not the 9 O'Clock News, in 1979. A general election caused it to be postponed from its original April airing date. The BBC believed that the show might be too political at the time. Music, finally, on October 16, 1979, the first episode broadcast. But that didn't work out. Not many people watched it. There were fewer than 1 million watchers. It was vilified by critics. Even Music stated that it should never be shown on television, and some people deemed it insulting. Mel Smith, who would go on to become a close co-star, described the half-hour of television as the worst he had ever seen. Surprisingly, though, the BBC controller enjoyed it. Right away, he placed another series order. The show was salvaged by that choice, which also made it one of the most significant British comedies ever. Alongside Rowan, Music, Pamela Stephenson, Mel Smith, and Griff Rhys-Jones all achieved stardom. Things weren't all that easy behind the scenes. In 1980, Chris Longham, Music, was let go after just one series. This did not sit well with Rowan. He demonstrated his loyalty to the producers by attempting to persuade them to keep Chris, but Chris was nonetheless fired and replaced with Griff Rhys-Jones. Chris avoided communicating with any of them for years due to the intense consequences. The BBC also began to reduce the show's budget. In an episode titled The Outrageously Expensive Not the 9 O'Clock News, they even made jokes about it because it had gotten that awful. They had to eliminate lesser roles and cease filming in upscale settings. Rowan's serious and meticulous side began to emerge around this time. Additionally, the show's tone shifted. Music, the tone shifted from shock humor to witty, strange comedy. Behind closed doors, there were obvious indications of creative conflicts. Then came the time when Rowan's entire life altered. Gerald the Gorilla was a sketch that aired in 1980, Music, during the second series. Mel Smith portrayed a professor who said he had trained Gerald, a gorilla. However, Rowan's character in a gorilla suit, Gerald, proved to be more intelligent and irascible than anyone, Music, anticipated. Gerald, Music, lost his temper and yelled, "Wild." I was absolutely livid. This famous statement was made after the professor claimed to have caught Gerald in the wild in 1968. Because of how well-liked the comedy was, actual scientists began mockingly referring to groupings of baboons as a flange. At the 1982 Montreux Festival, the episode contributed to the show's Silver Rose Award. For Best Light Entertainment Program, it also took up the BAFTA Award. Rowan's reputation as a master of physical comedy and odd humor began with that one sketch. It also prepared him for his subsequent roles in Mr. Bean and Blackadder. Something even more unexpected occurred in 1981. The comic song I Like Trucking from the show's Hedgehog Sandwich album was published. It became a smash tune. With no prior experience in music, Rowan was not expected to be included on a charting track. Rowan actually drove the truck in the scene, and the four actors sang it together. He was not acting. At the time, he had a genuine Class 1 lorry license. That little music tidbit added to the sketch's humor and authenticity. After being released as a single by BBC Records, the song gained enough popularity to be included on BBC compilations. It demonstrated that Rowan was more than a just sketch comic. He was capable of more. He was a versatile entertainer who could drive, act, sing, and perform. However, things took a bad turn by 1982. That year's March finale of the show wasn't due to low viewership. Rowan and the rest of the cast had reached a breaking point, which was the reason. They had been worn out. The writing, the acting, the worry, the pressure, and the quick tempo. Everything became too much. Rowan in particular was having trouble. He struggled with anxiety for a long time, and the burden was too much for him. Music, rather than capitalizing on their achievement and carrying on for fame or fortune, they left. Pamela Stephenson visited the film industry. In 1983, Rowan began filming Blackadder right away. Alas, Smith & Jones is a show that Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones produced. It was uncommon for them to decide to leave at the peak of their fame. It demonstrated how much Rowan valued the purity of music and mental wellness over financial gain. The Blackadder was debuted by Rowan on June 15, 1983. The idea was crazy. Richard Curtis, with whom he had collaborated on Not the 9 O'Clock News, co-wrote the music for it. In their fantasy, Richard III had prevailed in the Battle of Bosworth Field. Using massive sets and costumes, they filmed at Elwick, Music, Castle, and Rowan played Prince Edmund, the cunning, music, and power-hungry son of King Richard IV. The show was a risky bet. Even the Seven Network in Australia provided some funding for it. A joke referring to further dialogue by William Shakespeare was placed in the credits as a light-hearted joke. It was quite costly, but it was a creative leap. The BBC almost cancelled the first season because the expenses were so exorbitant. Rain continued to hamper the shots. Filming the castle took a long time. The enormous cast lists and period costumes completely depleted the budget. The reviews weren't very positive. The music was deemed less humorous by critics than Rowan's previous compositions. It was only salvaged by the worldwide Emmy the show received. The BBC felt confident enough to give it another go after receiving that award. But they changed things drastically this time. No more large sets or castles. Sharper, cheaper, and smaller would be the next season. That choice has a profound impact on the destiny of the show. Blackadder 2 made its debut in 1986. It was all fresh. Ben Elton contributed tighter plots and quicker gags as a co-writer. They concentrated on character moments instead of the large-scale movie scenes. Brian Blessed and other larger actors no longer had to share the limelight with Rowan. Now, he was the star. The cast was one of the largest changes. The squeaky, amusing Queenie, played by Miranda Richardson, won over the audience right away. Legendary cameos and musical numbers were also featured, such as Tom Baker's iconic portrayal of Redbeard Rum. Edmund, played by Rowan, became sardonic and witty, and Baldric, who had once been intelligent, became the endearing fool that fans loved. Some fans were upset at first. Music, Rowan Wally of the Week was even named by a critic. However, the public's perception evolved over time. It was acknowledged that this version was even superior. There was great chemistry, sharper gags, and richer personalities. When Blackadder Goes Forth, the last season, debuted in 1989, it was an unexpected hit. Rowan played Captain Blackadder, and the action took place in the trenches of World War I. Tony Robinson played Private Baldric, while Hugh Laurie played Lieutenant George. Though humorous, it was also somber. Without sacrificing its comedy, it illustrated the futility of war. People were afraid that jokes about World War I would be offensive, but they weren't. It had great power. It was the 1990 BAFTA winner for Best Comedy Series. Additionally, Rowan's act earned Best Light Entertainment. Music, the program placed 16th on the British Film Institute's list of the greatest British television programs ever in 2000. In 2004, it received over 282,000 votes and came in second place in a BBC poll for Britain's Music Finest Sitcom. One of the most poignant television finales ever was the slow-motion concluding scene in which the soldiers charge into no man's land. The cast worked together as a family behind the scenes. Stephen Fry, Rowan, and Hugh Laurie frequently made up things. They had mutual trust. Because the pressure wasn't solely on him, Rowan previously claimed that this assignment was the least stressful of his career. Together, they carried it. Their chemistry was incredible. Many of the lines that were improvised were retained in the final episodes. They couldn't replicate what they had in the 1980s, Rowan subsequently stated. It was a unique period. Mr. Bean arrived next. 1,340 million people watched the first episode when it aired on January 1, 1990. The character had been developed by Rowan throughout his time at Oxford. As Mr. Bean, he hardly spoke, which was ideal for viewers around the world. There were 245 nations where the show sold. 18.74 million people watched The Trouble with Mr. Bean, one of the episodes. It rose to become one of the most well-liked comedies worldwide. Laughing did not require an understanding of English. Every barrier was broken by the physical comedy. However, there was a darker side to all of that laughter. Rowan wasn't feeling well. He said that he didn't enjoy performing as Mr. Bean. The situation was tense. It exhausted him. He claimed that he frequently anticipated the conclusion and that the burden felt heavy. Rowan had to convey everything with his face and movements because the character didn't speak much. It was emotionally taxing. For the man behind it, what the public perceived as straightforward humor was actually a difficult musical performance. Mr. Bean made his big screen debut in 1997. Over 251 million copies of Bean were made worldwide. Over $25 million of that came from foreign markets for music. It debuted at number 1 with $3.1 million in Australia. It made $2.5 million in the UK, breaking opening records. In its debut weekend, it made more than 12 million Deutsche Marks in Germany. Even before it was released in the US, it became the fastest film in the UK to surpass $100 million. But Rowan's fatigue simply increased as a result of all that achievement. The world wanted more of him, even if he was already having trouble with the role. He came up with a solution in 2002. He created the cartoon series Mr. Bean. It started on March 2 and ended on November 1, 2004. 52 episodes made up the series. This format was a welcome change. All Rowan needed to do was the voice. No more strenuous physical labor. After gaining popularity among kids, the show transferred to CITV. While maintaining the original, it added new characters. Without endangering Rowan's health, the animated version preserved Mr. Bean. By 2024, the series had continued to run and was still being produced. Rowan brought Mr. Bean back to perform live during the London Olympics in 2012. In Chariots of Fire, he performed a humorous skit that was seen by 26.9 million people in the UK. 900 million people saw it worldwide. Rowan suffered greatly as a result of the performance, even if it was one of the most tweeted moments of the evening. For weeks, it left him exhausted. Nowadays, a lot of people believe that was his final significant physical appearance as Mr. Bean. Music, Rowan continued to surprise people, even outside of Blackadder and Mr. Bean. He performed in 4 marriages and a funeral in 1994 as a tense priest. The film was shot in 6 weeks and was made for a mere $3 million. It brought in $245.7 million. The scene during his wedding where he mistakes the vows became famous. His next big character was shaped by that little role. He played the lead role in the espionage satire Johnny English in 2003. With a $40 million budget, it earned $160 million worldwide. It began with his previous Barclaycard advertisements. He did physical comedy, dance, music, routines, and action situations. As a result of the popularity, Johnny English Reborn was released in 2011. Despite having a $45 million budget, it only earned $8.3 million in the United States. It was adored by audiences around the world. Johnny English Strikes Again opened in theaters in 2018. Digital spying and a cyber attack were both featured in the narrative. To give the position more substance, Rowan drew on his actual engineering degree from Oxford. In order to appeal to viewers concerned about their safety online, the movie struck a balance between traditional espionage fun and contemporary cyber anxieties. Rowan made an experiment with keeping mom in 2005. He played a pastor who had to deal with issues in his family. Music did not do well in the film. Both viewers and critics remained silent. For some, it was too strange, and for others, too black. Rowan withdrew from the film after the debacle. Music, he returned with Johnny English Reborn after taking a 2-year hiatus to concentrate on live performances in television. Sunitra Sastry and Rowan Atkinson initially crossed paths in the late 1980s. She worked as a makeup artist on Blackadder, a BBC show. To speak with her, Rowan actually changed makeup artists. Because he had also wanted to ask her out, his co-star Stephen Fry was subtly disappointed. Rowan, however, arrived first. On February 5, 1990, they were married at the Russian Tea Room in New York after falling in love. His best friend was Stephen Fry. Between them, they had 2 kids. In 1993, their daughter Lily was born, and in 1995, their son Benjamin. They were together for 24 years. But in 2014, everything was different. Rowan and Sunitra parted ways that year. In November 2015, the divorce became final. Sunitra said in court that Rowan was, music, acting irrationally. Rowan had also been discreetly seeing a considerably younger woman, Louise, music, Ford, at the same time. The media was overflowing with headlines, and Sunitra, music, was devastated to have someone so young take her place. In March 2001, Rowan had a terrible experience. Their private, music, pilot unexpectedly passed out in flight when he and his family were traveling in Kenya. Despite having no prior aviation experience, Rowan was able to stabilize the aircraft by grasping the controls, music. He persisted until the pilot awoke and made a safe landing in Nairobi. Rowan was 46 years old. In that moment, the actor who played Mr. Bean revealed something that nobody had anticipated. He maintained composure and saved everyone in real life. That flight may have ended, music, tragically if he hadn't responded quickly, but he doesn't discuss much about the emotional wounds it left. Many were shocked by Rowan's address in Parliament in October 2012. The topic was freedom of speech. He defended the freedom to speak, even if it offends others, for 9 minutes. Too many things are labeled offensive, music, he remarked, and people should have the freedom to express themselves. Over 140,000 people viewed that speech in a matter of days after it went viral. However, not everyone shared his viewpoint. He was accused by some progressive, music, campaigners and LGBTQ+ groups of defending hate speech. The legislation did, however, alter. The Public Order Act's prohibition on derogatory language was eliminated. People came to see Rowan as more than just a comedian. His opinions were strong, and he didn't hesitate to voice them. While performing in the play Quartermain's Terms in 2013, Rowan started dating someone else. The age of his age was 58. At 31, Louise Ford, his co-star, was 31. She left comedian James Acaster, her boyfriend, to be with Rowan. The 27-year age gap between them was seen scandalous by many. About the same time that Rowan split off music with Sinatra in 2014, the news broke. Fans and reporters were critical of them. Rowan, however, said nothing about it. Louise gave birth to their daughter Isela in December 2017. He previously observed, "The only thing more important than not talking about your personal life is not talking about why you're not talking about it." Rowan, at 62, became a father once more. Rowan was always perceived as being pro-environmental. He has been advocating for climate change and driving electric and hybrid vehicles since the 1980s. However, he published an essay in The Guardian in June 2023 that stunned everyone. "I love electric vehicles," the title said, "and I was an early adopter, but I'm starting to feel like I was tricked." Compared to regular cars, he claimed in the essay that electric vehicles actually produce 70% more greenhouse gas emissions during production. EV batteries were criticized by him. The conservative media, including Fox Business, featured the article in their headlines. His statements were deemed false by environmental specialists, who were incensed. Then it was revealed that Rowan had an enormous collection of supercars, including uncommon Aston Martins and McLarens. His article was even held accountable by Parliament for the UK's declining EV sales. His detractors said that despite leading an extremely high-carbon lifestyle, he supported fossil fuel businesses. Disney offered Rowan the part of Zazu in The Lion King in 1994, but he declined. Even though he claimed to have never liked voice acting, he nevertheless consented, and his voice ended up being one of the most memorable aspects of the movie. Globally, The Lion King brought in $968.5 million. It became the highest-grossing hand-drawn movie for Disney. Although he didn't sing, his Zazu performance was a huge success. The 2019 remake, which nevertheless brought in $1.6 billion, did not feature him again. Musicians, fans, missed him. The fact that something he didn't want to accomplish turned out to be one of his greatest professional victories was one of those odd occasions. During his 2018 appearance on The Graham Norton Show, Rowan revealed something startling. He claimed that filming was really challenging and draining. He believed that his efforts were never good enough. He had previously stated to The Telegraph in 2012 that he wished to retire Mr. Bean. "It can be a little depressing," he observed, "to see someone in their 50s act music like a child." However, in 2016, he declared that he will never retire the persona, citing a change of heart. Fans were perplexed, but it was clear how difficult it was for him to let go of the persona that made him famous when he shifted once more in 2018 and stated that Mr. Bean was unlikely to return, adding, "You must, music, never say never." Although Mr. Bean made millions of people happy, Rowan experienced stress and burnout as a result. In the year 2022, Rowan made a comeback to physical comedy with the Netflix series Man vs. Bee. He portrayed a house-sitter named Trevor who was attempting to eradicate a single bee. The 9 episodes ranged in duration from 10 to 20 minutes. He had a difficult time filming, but it seemed like fun. Rowan was performing exploits reminiscent of his Mr. Bean days at the age of 67. He claimed that even a bike sequence in a previous film, Mr. Bean's Holiday, left him utterly, musically, worn out. He acknowledged that he had never been athletic and never would be. His physique could no longer withstand the same degree of physical humor, but Man vs. Bee was a throwback to the past. Rowan's 70th birthday was January 6, 2025. Born in Newcastle upon Tyne, he has spent more than 45 years making people laugh with his music. Online, his birthday generated a lot of discussion. In addition to wishing him well and sharing their favorite music videos, fans also expressed concern about his impending retirement. Rowan had previously stated that when you get older, physical comedy becomes more difficult. He seems more receptive to slowing down. There were others who thought it was time to finally bid Mr. Bean farewell. The official Mr. Bean YouTube account had more than 12.1 billion views and 35.1 million subscribers by September 2025. Each month, it earned between $77,000 and $232,000. It received between 1.5 and 2.3 million views per day. Fans of the figure might be found in Mumbai, Tokyo, and S. Paul. Comedians such as Sacha Baron Cohen claim to have been influenced by Mr. Bean's style. The Atkinson approach is currently taught in comedy schools. Simple, silent humor that was universally relatable. People started referring to Rowan as Charlie Chaplin of the 21st century. He evolved beyond being a British actor. He rose to fame as a world icon. A fan theory regarding Mr. Bean was ultimately verified in September 2024. People thought he was an alien for many years. The cartoon episode Double Trouble proved that notion correct. Inside a spaceship, Mr. Bean encounters his clones. The show formally acknowledged that he was not from Earth, according to Screen Rant. It was even alluded to in the premiere of the first series. Behold the man who is a bean. His name was simply Mr., and he falls from the heavens as a Latin chant utters those words. As if aliens were unaware of human names, they had no first names. Although Rowan had once alluded to it in 1993, it was now included in the narrative. Despite their disbelief, fans were thrilled to learn the truth. Rowan has an amazing award record despite his self-doubt. In addition to receiving 18 nominations, he has won 12 major accolades. Not the 9 o'clock News earned him a BAFTA in 1981, and Rowan Atkinson in Review earned him a Laurence Olivier Award. His act in Blackadder Goes Forth got him the award for Outstanding Light Entertainment in 1990. Between 1991 and 1994, Mr. Bean received 4 BAFTA nominations by himself. He also took home an International Emmy for music. In spite of everything, Rowan continues to claim that he doesn't feel successful. He asks himself questions all the time. Nonetheless, he is unquestionably regarded as one of the greatest of all time by admirers worldwide.